feel like there's a significance of these fires, a spiritual significance that is coinciding with this mask ritual, this COVID crowning of.
There was a fire in Corona, California, Dutch said the other day.
Yes, I saw that.
Really?
Yes, amazing.
Okay, that's an important point. I'm writing that.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, Marla, how you doing?
Okay, how are you doing?
We're just jumping right in here. Sorry, guys. How is everybody? So I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm flying into the fire. That's gonna be.
Yeah, you are really, literally flying into the fire.
It's almost symbolic, isn't it, of the fire that I'm flying into spiritually and emotionally out there. It's just like how it's apropos or something.
Yes, yes. It is almost that way.
Yeah.
The thing that's fascinated me this week, you know, I was communicating with Marie, we all know who they are. So this idea that there's people that we know that seem to be agents of disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Should I just go ahead and say the name?
Go ahead.
Okay, Israeli News Live, Stephen Yana.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I way back probably first saw his site 5 years ago, and he was talking all this Zio stuff, and it just, you know, boom. And then I hit it again, I suppose 2 years ago. And he was saying stuff other people weren't. And I started following him. I mean, there's some great revelations. And especially it is this idea of so much of Isaiah and Ezekiel and Jeremiah are being fulfilled in the book of Acts in particular. And that kind of stuff. At another level that even, you know, past preterists didn't quite get. Okay, and still today he puts out something, you know, because I kind of just want to walk away altogether, but here's where I'm going with this. I'm intrigued by something, so I'm putting it out here. Today, him and Yana are sitting there talking about 2,700 evangelical leaders are calling for Christians to get the vaccination, follow the government. I mean, this is important that someone's out there as a counter voice, and they just listen to the experts, and they're both saying, like, which experts, the ones on CNN or the one, you know, should we be doing some homework? So half of what he's doing, digging into the Bible, digging into prophecy, especially prophecy that's already finished, and some of the stuff with the vaccines. Okay, the other half of the equation, and I already asked Marie her opinion, but I'd like to get everybody's opinion. The other half is this stuff. Okay, it starts with the asteroids, Planet X, Roby, or whatever they call that thing.
Roby, yeah.
Meteorites.
Can I say something that?
Okay, and that's part of it, and because I want to get to you first, Marie. And the other part is just so much with the sources and the fear all at once. It's going to be the economic collapse. It's going to be a changing of the weather. Why would a Christian need to pound that stuff from his sources constantly? Yes. But in particular, what just tripped me out one night, I couldn't sleep. I don't even communicate with Maria. And it's this thing, she was matching up different his sources with other people. One of this guy's name is Silver Snake, giving religious advice when his name's Silver Snake. Think about it. But,
okay.
Why is he talking about there's going to be, starting in 2021, there's going to be this Messiah figure on. He's going to be, you know, because a lot of this is this kind of Zio prophecy. It's going to be that 7-year thing. And why do they want what are they externalizing here? I can't get it, because, I mean, it doesn't all seem like it's necessarily false. What's the point? What's the agenda? Marie already had a lot of good thoughts on it. So, I mean, what do you think, Marie?
Well, one of his sources is a presidential advisor, a FEMA engineer, which called into Marfugel, who is also a security guard, supposedly, on Marfugel's show. And then Stephen deleted the video because a bunch of people said they heard him on Marfugel, and it was a lie. So he had to delete the video. And when he deleted the video, he lied about it. He said, sorry, sometimes I get emails and I just don't know who they're from, but he said in the video it's from his FEMA source. Anyway. So So someone said something good. No matter what you think about him, I think it was good. Joe Imbriano said that perhaps, okay, you know how when someone's playing baseball and they make a bunch of noise, chatter, like, hey, batter, to distract? Perhaps he's trying to distract by, to distract someone from hitting the ball.
They kind of say sometimes the New Agers or some veins of Christians say it's kind of like jamming the frequency even between us.
Yeah.
Like, whatever we think of how God's sustaining his creation here.
Seen them lie too many times to know they're not genuine. They lie a lot. I've caught them in many lies, and I can't handle that.
Yeah, Richie from Boston's been saying that for a long time.
Has he?
He had a couple examples of how they used some of his own stuff and then said it wasn't, and then but I kind of thought, oh, he's kind of wrong on this, because I didn't think he maybe saw the value of what they were doing with the biblical text and so forth. Why would he, if he was kind of a secular Jew, a non-religious Jew, I don't even know why we're still going here. Why would he know Hebrew as well as he did if he didn't start studying it until he was an adult? He does seem to have a pretty good command of it.
Yeah.
Why won't he delete his old New Age videos? He still has a bunch of New Age videos up. He refuses to delete them, even though people have asked. And people still go there to see those videos and, get deceived.
Yeah. That's
hard.
That's a big thing happening in the church today, is this, finding common ground with the New Age, right? And their ascension is a completely different,
right? And that Lane Celeste or whatever her name is, she's kind of she's got a Gnostic thing going on, and they kind of will qualify it and say we don't necessarily agree with this. And then he's conferencing with Zen and this kind of stuff. That he's yoking himself up, and he's like Marie said, he's lying. I don't know if he's working for a source. What's driving him to really dig into the Bible? Like, he reveal a lot of good sources, though.
Well, you could say that of many of these people, that are out there today. I mean, the very, what do you want to call it? The architecture of a deception is that it contains much truth. You have to know the
law. Giannis had to do all this work to exploring the Talmud and so forth, and the agenda there.
I feel like a lot of Bible information Stephen Giannis shared was actually from Deanne and other people, like the whole 70 AD thing, or some prophecy being fulfilled, was, what Deanne was sharing a lot on Facebook. And then all of a sudden after that, Israeli News Live started talking about it a lot.
Well, Midnight Ride took a lot of her stuff, and they've been doing it for a year and a half without quoting her a lot of times.
Yeah. It's easy to do. Pick a topic, go do a quick brush up on it, and you can, if you speak well, present yourself well, carry yourself well, you can sound like an expert, until you get someone on to really question you and debate you and see, is that just a little pocket of knowledge, or is it genuine broad knowledge of Scripture? Because it's easy to appear like you have that broad knowledge.
I know a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks back, he didn't know how to pronounce preterist. Like, as much as he's been doing this.
That would be
into that word before.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be a little red flag. Okay.
Yeah. That's funny.
So he's maybe taking other people's studies. And
okay, I don't. Maybe this is a good conversation. Maybe it's not. I don't know if we're losing even Jamie here. But do you know who we're talking about, Jamie?
No.
Oh, okay. This is probably.
So you don't know.
Trying to listen to it, I'm trying to compare with what you're saying. With
do you know, Jamie? Have you looked into biblical cosmology, NASA, things like that?
Yeah, briefly, but not enough to expound on it myself to other people.
And I have an idea that, Marla, you definitely know about NASA and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I know all about that stuff.
Cult origins and
yep.
So do you mean like
Crowley?
Oh yeah.
When you say,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, when you say that, do you mean how how NASA and science and that and stuff like that is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Is that what you mean?
It's kind of like the heliocentric model is being sustained by this large, humongous kind of farce called space.
Mhm.
So for us people that have been doing it for a few years, you know, this is where it's over the top. And I just sent a message to Marie. His guest that he got on, you know, when somebody looks and attacks like an agent, like today I'm going to dress like this, you can almost see it, very Alex Jonesy kind of thing, one of the guys he had on. But they're just saying, keeps wrenching the word science, and talking about this solar system and that solar system and explaining all this stuff. And the back of him, he's got this gigantic, what was it, Narubu or
Are these Christians?
Well, the host is, but he's got this fascination with pushing this space thing and these,
Oh, wow.
and he calls them aliens, not fallen angels. And
that's a big problem.
Over the top. He's
That's
showing
a huge problem.
It's a big problem.
All my sources at NASA, talking NASA, putting CGI images up. And it's like, why would you even if you believed in the heliocentric model, why would you be pounding on this all the time in the times that we're living in? You know,
if you
should I pop in this scripture in Timothy chapter 6, verse 20?
Babbling of scientists, so-called.
Yeah. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called, which
that's what it is.
Professing have erred concerning the faith. Science, false.
Putting stumbling blocks too in front of people.
I was just going to. Sorry.
Just stumbling block. Is that what you said?
Yes, definitely putting stumbling blocks in front of people so that they stumble, and that's not what we want.
I subscribed to Stephen when I was literally first saved, and I was stumbling. I thought some Jewish guy had a vision of God and all kinds of crazy stuff, and you know, that was when I was first saved, and some people come out of it, some people get stuck in it, but I was stumbling, that's for sure.
Yeah, listen to this. It's funny, I was going to bring this up, and it's just because Yvonne said it. It's in First Timothy. I've been studying, well, I've just started to study a little bit of just First Timothy 1. Chapter, I'd say 4 to 7, and he says, "As I urged you when I was going to Macedonia, remain at is it Ephesus? Is that how you pronounce it? So that you may charge certain persons not to teach any different doctrine, nor to devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies, which promote speculations rather than the stewardship from God that is by faith. The aim of our charge is love that issues from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. Certain persons, by swerving from these, have wandered away into vain discussions, desiring to be teachers of the law without understanding either what they are saying or the things which they make confident assertions."
I didn't know if it's the same one where he says, "I'm giving heed to Jewish fables."
That's the NIV version, I think, or is it?
There's little gems all over the New Testament, and you just wonder, how are people so caught up in this Jewishness?
Oh gosh, really?
It's all. I don't care where you open the book you open to read. It's in there. How can people?
Can I just say I read a great teaching how I know it's true, but I don't. The person who expounded on it in a sermon really didn't drift away from what Paul is saying. When people start going into the scriptures and trying to decode things, if it produces speculations and doubt and strife, then it's not of God. But if it produces, because Paul's aim, was the teachings he passed on to that generation. It's like pass the baton. And you're meant to pass the same teachings on, and these things should come from a sincere faith and should produce love. And if it's producing divisions, severe strife, then
I think that depends. I'm sorry, Jamie. I think it depends upon the people that are receiving the message, though, too, and what you know, where they stand in terms of God and all. You know what I'm saying?
For Christians, I think the time of revelation, because there would be some new revelations for us, but I think if we're checking ourselves, those revelations need to be consistent with the message of Paul and Christ.
Right.
That's what I meant. That's what I basically was trying to say. Yeah, there's things out there. What the guys who you're sharing, what's the fruit of the discussions with
Fear.
People are arguing over it so much he had to turn his comments off and censor everybody. And then he blamed it on, he said flat earthers are bullies, but
in a dismissive
not
way,
a lot of people are disagreeing about other stuff, not just the shape of the earth.
Yeah. And why is it such a really, why people get so offended to preserve that truth of the earth not being flat? It's like,
you think us protest too much or something like that? Isn't that a Shakespearean thing? I don't know. Or did that come out of a movie? Was it Val Kilmer? I don't know.
In Thessalonians, I always think when I read Thessalonians where Paul talks about there being false signs, just evil deception, basically. If you read Thessalonians, he talks about signs and wonders and it being in accordance to how Satan works. Do you often think that basically is NASA and science, modern day science, because they have a lot of signs just with just the moon landing being one of them, being filmed in probably Hollywood. That is in itself was a deception, a sign. They made it look real, do you reckon?
Never thought of that, Jamie.
Modern day science, pharmaceuticals, these are all signs and wonders. Like, look at what they can do on television. When you watch a movie about space, it actually looks like they're in Mars. So why can't they do that documentary style? Do you know what I mean?
They're definitely connected. The sorcery and revelations is also connected to pharmakia, but it's also deception too.
I think sorcery could be food too. The chemicals they put in food.
I think it's really broad.
Chemicals.
It's all.
I think it's a lot of the tricks of the fallen angels being exploited in new and broader ways than ever before because of the loosening of the evil one.
Right. And and the rituals, the deception, which I was listening to the Truth Stream Media video about the ritual of mask wearing.
Good one.
Yeah, which I don't know, it ties with this the
fires in California.
Yeah, the lightning and Zeus and Jupiter and this transition period, this transformation period into what is to come. It all ties.
Aquarius.
Yeah. They sang about it in the 60s.
Yeah,
well, it's because it's a big shift.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the star seeds and the earth angels and all those people that are doing? I mean, I was on a page last night, and I was like, the guy said, release the star seeds and the earth angels, out. We need their help. And I'm like, oh my gosh, does he realize what he's saying?
Where was this?
It was on someone's page. It was in Australia. It was somebody who lives in Australia. He lives in Australia. And I'm just like, I obviously had to comment, about it. And now of course, I'm receiving some backlash with somebody who, is thinking that they're doing, they're going towards the light, the light workers and star seeds. Release the light workers and star seeds. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, you don't want that.
Yeah.
Was it a Christian site?
No, it wasn't a group. It was just a person's personal page. He actually is a Getty Images photographer, and he lives in Melbourne, Australia. And he had friended me, and I I thought it would, I'm trying to keep up with things happening in Australia a little bit, because it seems like they seem to always start in Australia and then move out from there. So it's for a group that I'm with. So
Interesting. Why they start in Australia? Why there?
well, I think it's a closed system. You know, you've got ocean all the way around it. Okay, Australia and New Zealand the same way. You know,
Right.
so it just makes sense that. Also, what started it all was, I'll have to send this to you. Was there was a picture of a nurse and doctors with the, oh, Marie, do you remember what the name of that is? It was a dragon. It was a red dragon. And it starts with Pendragon, or something like that.
Talking about that photo?
Yes, it has
in the college.
I remember it too.
Was it the college, or I thought it was in the hospital? But anyway, yeah, it could be the college now that you say that.
I don't know. But
it had to do with the dragon, and someone picked up on it and said, "This is like it was pretty big." That was pretty significant. I was shocked. Okay, here it is. I'll tag you in it.
The charismatic churches are also pushing the Great Awakening also. My friend goes to one, and she's posting about it too.
I'm working on an article about that. The churches everyone's talking about awakening, and it isn't just New Agers. It's the church. And
I think the churches are afraid. I think the church buildings are afraid these days. Yeah. I think the direction they've received from their pastors has been so minute that they don't know which way to turn at this point.
And there's still, Jamie was telling me just yesterday there are still pastors that literally get angry with people who are becoming aware of the technologies that are killing people. I mean, it's like, well, that's conspiracy. That's not sharing the gospel. And reprimanding and shunning these people and telling other people not to talk to them.
Keep them dumbed down.
Because but under the pious cloak of, but we need to just be sharing the gospel, right? And I mean, that's really what I'm looking at, is this incredible balance that we need to keep between being in the world, being not of it, having the gospel be our primary focus, and yet at the same time not losing our love for humanity. This, if you don't mind me, were you finished with, am I taking?
No, go ahead, keep going, because it's giving me a chance to find something I wanted to show you.
Okay. I had this encounter. I wanted to share this because it just impacted me so much. Walking my dogs, it's when I talk to everybody. That's my social life. Walking my dogs, I run into a sweet girl down the street who is a kindergarten teacher, and she has a little 5-year-old. And I walk up, and she looks like she's just so grateful to see me, because we always stop and talk about things, and she knows I kind of dig beneath the surface, and that I'm a believer. And she grew up in church, goes to church kind of thing, but her Christianity level, I would call it, kind of more, a little bit more social, on a more social level, not really digging into the word. In her defense, she's raising a 5-year-old. She's a single mom. She just graduated school and started teaching. I mean, her plate is full, right? But she looked so frazzled, more than I've ever seen her before. And just telling me she's at wit's end. I mean, the restrictions they're putting on her. She's got, this little band of 5-year-olds that all have to wear their masks. And the governor is coming down with more and more and more requirements and restrictions. She's now no longer able to take breaks. She has to clean that classroom from ceiling to floor 3 times a day. Manipulatables, what's kindergarten about? Can't have those. You might spread germs. children have to be 6 feet apart. She just went on and on. And meanwhile, she has the online class, the half of the class that has to be online at home. And there's another whole thing is that they're now asking teachers to keep an eye on those classes to look for certain things and call child protective services if they see certain things happening there. She says, we're into our 3rd week in the school year. And she says, and the children have not yet picked up a pencil.
Wow.
Because of all the hoops she's having to jump through. And she just, teared up. She just, but I'm going to get through it. It's got to get better. It's got to get better, right? I mean, she was really shaken up, poor thing. And I was like stumped. I was like, I don't think it's going to get better.
I'm seeing brainwashed parents. Sorry, I don't mean to insult them, but really not happy with their kids getting shot in the head with a laser thermometer. They're really
that thing
not
too.
liking that.
Thing too. Let me, if you don't mind me finishing this though, where I was going with this. And so, here's this young woman with her little 5-year-old. She's a fresh out of school kindergarten teacher, her whole life before her. And here I am telling her there's no hope in this world. Do you see what I'm saying? And yes, she believes in Jesus, but dang, my heart's just breaking for her. And I heard myself, just telling her, we have, those of us that know Christ, we need to hold on to him now like never before. What we need is the supernatural strength that comes from God. And
it's a hard place.
I can't remember my words.
It's so normal to have hope, hope that, in your children's future. It's just very normal.
Yeah.
And so when people come face to face with that kind of darkness.
So I told her about, that being in the waiting room and how that supernatural power came over me. I said that hope, that is real. But I told her that we, and I don't want to use her name. I keep stopping myself from using her name. That we are living in a time, I believe, where we really need to tangibly make that our hope. Where, because I think this world is not, it's not going to be getting better. It's not going to be a good place.
You're right.
And I felt bad about saying that, and yet at the same time, she visibly relaxed when I told her that. And then she started to almost cry, and and she acknowledged. She says, "I've known that hope. I've felt that strength." And it was like she shifted, and she saw, And so, I mean, it ended up, I left and I felt good about the conversation, but still, how hard that is. And then for people, like these protesters in Berlin that broke my heart, they don't know God. They don't know Jesus. And they're just out there being courageous, where so many here in the States just have their heads stuck in the sand and don't want to look at that, including Christians. Oh, and they're out there courageously saying, these are lies. We're not listening to these lies. And that's great. But, how to tell them that that's only part of the truth, that because that awakening that they're stepping into, that awakening is setting them up for the false answer. That's going to come. And so just this trying to find the balance in this world between, again, keeping our mind on what is true, on spiritual truth, and instead of being afraid of what's going on in the world, and not losing our heart for the people. This is their life, I mean, it's got, I don't know, I think I felt when I was talking to my neighbor, you know, I just, and listening to the people in Berlin, I just feel like I'm feeling God's heart for them and how much,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I think the idea,
them.
when we had the idea of storm fisher, like in these times, having a conversation like you just had, you know, in the context of these times, or what, you know, what we're trying to navigate here. And the way you put it in your book, Yvonne, the loosening through an orthodox view would be Satan's been bound. He's king of this world, but he's been bound. He's been bound specifically from people spreading the gospel. But as he's loosening, now does that mean it doesn't mean the gospel can't be spread, but it's just the level of deception is so high. I'm getting an overcharge here. My wife's going to be bananas. But the level of deception is so high. But somewhere within that, that's what you were navigating in that conversation. I think we have to sometimes know. I think that was a great example of just kind of drawing somebody to a new hope, or because sometimes, you know, when we are on the hamster wheel, you know, it's kind of hard for us to kind of think that way, except in maybe some kind of idolized kind of way. But, you know, it's also preparing people for the next storm, or the bigger storm that's approaching.
And it's going to continue to get bigger. And
right, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get bigger.
I think that's why we kind of we were all agreed to kind of that storm being in the title was appropriate. It was maybe 2 months ago that when this was kind of new that I said, you know, on my little page, I think this is the tribulation. Other people kind of said it after me. I said it in my own mind because I never in my whole life was always kind of just put it on the shelf that we could be living in the end times, or this could be some kind of deception to make it look like it's the end time. But when we get into this level of things like what's being proposed in the House is this one banking system. It's the one chip system. It's introduced as Bill 666.
Right.
You know, it's just, there's a supernatural level to that. I don't even think they sat there and made the bill like that. I think there's some supernatural thing going on.
Yeah.
Number just kind of
that it's just like, hello, I don't know what else to tell you. But
veil is just thinning and thinning to where you can
around the world, the stimulus money is going to run out. Okay. All the Western countries were already it was just the debate just a few years ago, constantly, can we borrow more money to make sure we can let the postmen do their job, or our military? And then suddenly we can just throw $6 more trillion, you know, $6 trillion. You can't even get your head around $1 trillion.
Well, these numbers are just
about 1 trillion. Oh no, the sky's going to fall. And this is going on all around the Western world, and it's going to crash because it was designed to, frankly. But
it was designed to. Yes.
Even if you don't believe, if you want to, you know, embrace an accidental view of history, it has to crash, and it has to crash soon. So it's just a reality from
even Prince was it Prince Andrew? Which prince was it who was talking about this is the time for a global reset? This is the perfect time for it.
Oh, yeah,
it was a month or two ago.
Yeah,
Prince
Charles.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of this navigating is just knowing with a pretty good sense of certainty that this is real, and directing our own hope, but yet at the same time being able to function and get around in the world is the challenge of our time.
And I think we're coming to a place where I think we're going to quickly come to a place where that in the natural, by our own mind and discipline, is going to become literally impossible. I think discernment is
we have
going
to find a place of
impossible.
We have to find a place of peace with that going on constantly. And then when you have Christian, quote unquote, Christian truthers,
they're talking
and a lot of it's true.
They're just adding to that noise. And
You
Lot
know,
of noise.
I have to just flatly say whatever they are, that is not, it's not a Christian ministry. Whatever
Well,
they are.
even the New Age truthers kind of recognize, they're always talking about frequencies, right? And the vibration.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're a little bit better at just kind of at least sounding like they have a sort of a perspective on this, you know, and they'll talk about God and peace and all this kind of stuff. It's not our Christian God that's focused on our sin and redeeming our sin. But they're kind of not even always flaky New Age, but sometimes just the God of the God of nature sometimes. But sometimes they're a little bit more, I think, resolved with this than a lot of the Christians are out there.
Yeah, sadly, you know, and Henry Mackow said it really well. The where the church has been, I think I've got his quote in my book. I'm sure I do.
Yeah.
This entire orchestrating engineering of the church denominations to where they are today has been set up in part to really ridicule the Christ of God, ridicule Christianity. And
That's why we're struggling so much.
yeah,
They've had this in their back pocket for years,
I
centuries.
remember when I went to college and was definitely falling away. I was probably even falling away before college. I went in, you know, this is the age of MTV and, you know, just being
too cool.
But if you remember, as you're getting into, you know, then you're going and learning about secular humanism and all this kind of stuff. Remember, you know, the Jim and Tammy parade and fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy
Baker. Got the tears on them soon.
Oh, yeah. And her mascara running.
And you know, it's designed to make Christianity look like a pathetic carnival show, you know?
My furniture is here, so I'll let you guys take it from there. I'm going to disappear for a minute. Okay.
All right. I just posted in the notes what was on that. It has a picture of it. And you guys might have, well, I don't know whether you did, Doug, but I know Jamie and Marie have. And I'm sure that Yvonne has as well. But it's a picture. You can pull it up if you want, Doug, later. It's interesting, and I'm going to just read what I have here. It's interesting you said this is from Australia, because that particular red dragon is the Pendragon flag of Wales, dating all the way back to King Arthur. Charles, Prince of Wales, is the longest running British monarch to hold the title Prince of Wales. He's held the position and title since 1958, and Charles is, for all intents and purposes, the reigning King of England, though unofficially, as the Queen Mother is no longer able to perform her duties due to her advanced age and the COVID restrictions. To me, it's symbolic of the passing of the banner of rulership. In effect, the Queen is dead. Long live the King. The divine feminine, i.e. spiritual presence, is being surmounted by the divine masculine, i.e. physical expression, manifestation of what's happening in the spiritual world. In other words, we best pay attention to what's happening in Australia and New Zealand. The dragon is rising to the utter emphatic fullness of his power, and all the world wanders after the beast. Please don't ask me if Charles is the Antichrist.
Yeah. In Deanne's book, and I referenced it in mine when we talked about the rising of the techno serpent or rising of the Leviathan, and then you're getting the connection. If you want to go with lightning or electricity or AI, these two things are merging. But again, a part of this mass invocation of humanity, chaos magic, you know, the revealing, the externalization of priests and hierarchy, all these pieces are put together to kind of, you know, brew this thing up. It's literally the raising of the techno serpent, or I think it's the equivalent of what we'd call the raising up of the Leviathan.
I was also wondering if that, well, and probably to what you're saying is, you know, the beast of the sea, you know, is rising up, because that's that red dragon is very much.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it here. I've seen that definitely before, and And then, you know, we got the reference in Revelation as well. So it's
Mhm.
where the meeting between Kabbalah and biblical eschatology.
Right, right. So I wanted to make sure I included that, you know, somewhere. Yeah, it's pretty heavy. Australia is struggling. Their prime ministers are virtually non-existent now. They've 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 shut the parliaments down. So
Wow. I watched a clip yesterday or 2 days ago from a newscaster in Australia.
mhm.
And it was an American that was showing it and saying, could you imagine anybody on CNN or NBS, whatever, Fox and CNBC?
Right.
And this guy's just going off with just heavy truth. He's an older man, well
Mhm.
dressed, and just anything, you know, the statistics, obviously there's an agenda here, destroying the future of the youth. And he went
Mhm.
on and on and on. It was kind of mind blowing. It was kind of cool that, you know, this was more
He could get away with it,
like
right?
some kind of public discourse in some place in the world, but it was Australia of all places where things are, you know, and you know, on top of New Zealand, things are so terrible right now.
Well, it looks like they could have quite possibly sold the prime minister, Victoria, sold Victoria to China.
Yeah, there's a
It's
lot of,
not, I don't know.
yeah, there's this set of sources in Henry Mako over the last few years that make that
Mhm.
case.
Yeah, it's guessing by golly, I don't know. God knows.
Yeah, there's some of that stuff's confusing. Some people, you know, this thing with Gog or Magog, is it
Uh-huh.
Daria or is it China? And whatever, I don't know.
Satan is definitely the master of confusion, and he's really doing it big time.
That's what it
You
is.
know,
Yep.
what's important though, where we find comfort in this is, you know, I know the deception's rampant, but our Lord, when he prophesied about false prophets and that we do have all throughout the New Testament guidelines and warnings
Mhm.
how to handle this. And Paul says, you know, basically in Romans, that is to love the truth, so that we will, you know, not have any strong delusion ourselves. But yeah, at least in the New Testament, you know, as long as we don't go beyond what is written, you know, we do have hope and how to handle all this. Yeah, what do you guys think? Is there anywhere you could point to in the New
Well, I just
Testament?
think what you just said is very important, you know, and we got to get back to that simpleness of that hope. We have a hope. You know, how else are you going to say it? Our home truly isn't here. We have to kind of be clear with this. You know, if we have to think of ourselves as travelers here.
Like so, like Peter says, as is it? What's the word? Is it sojourners? Is that the right word?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
sojourners.
Exiles. And I like how that's a foreshadowing of Egypt. Coming out of Egypt into the wilderness.
Mhm.
I mean, sorry, to Babylon. They were exiles, wasn't they? And Peter says that's how we are in the world. But yeah, it's just it's Peter exhorts us to be sober-minded, to have our minds prepared for action. Yeah, do you reckon? Because one of you commented before how it's hard to sometimes. There's so much deception, and then you've got the New Agers and all the other people adding on to this noise, sort of thing. Do you reckon one way to identify deception is applying what Jesus says? You know, you will know them by their fruits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just love, joy, peace, happiness, because anyone can fake that, but also knowing that those fruits will be there sincerely, but knowing that love doesn't compromise with the truth as well. So when we see a pattern of compromise, that isn't of true love, you know, because love never yields to error. You know, love will always protect. Paul says love hopes all things, protects all things.
Amen.
So yeah, because I was thinking, you know, just because, you know, someone's, you know, people producing a deception can produce good fruits. They can, the fruits of the Holy Spirit. but when they start compromising with doctrine and weird myths and genealogies, as Tim, then that's not a fruit.
No. Sometimes I'll watch, like survival / camping videos.
And, yeah, I like those too. Those are fun.
And sometimes I'll like watch people. You guys can kind of imagine the type I'm talking about, like a Scandinavian type of person, maybe in America, but probably like in Sweden or Norway. And
sure,
they seem so at peace, like self-control and peace that we would think of. And usually when we say a love of the world, we mean like the beast system and a love of the system, and a love of the movies, and of all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of weird, like sometimes I'll be listening to them, and then they're going to get off on their philosophy, and their philosophy is essentially, they just love, the rocks and streams, like, because usually I think, Paul isn't talking about that usually when he's talking about the world, but when you put it into this kind of Gaia-ish kind of frame, like they really love those rocks and streams. Then you kind of, they get to talk about their philosophy, and they'll say something like, we're all just really just hairless apes, and it's just like, why am I listening to this guy? So, because some people, are really, they grew up, they inherited the they inherited the Christian culture and this Christian civilization, and they kind of know how to think through it and be rational and good family people. Mm-hmm. But when you're really working through the fruits of the Spirit, I mean, they're probably really great people, and they don't cheat, and don't lie, and go to work and pay their taxes, nice to their kids. But at the end of the day, they think this is all there is. And when they die, and so, it's almost can be a deception how they can kind of carry themselves so calmly until, I suppose a rather thing is like, where are you going to go when you die? And they're going to go, I'm going to be buried. It's over. I don't find any hope in that at all.
I don't either.
That's why, Paul says, when he's comforting the Thessalonians about grieving, don't grieve as those who have no hope.
Right. Just something in my psyche, something about me knows that God didn't put me here to have me rot in the earth.
That's right.
That there's some deep sense of spiritual sense that I'm here to go back to my Creator. And so, so some people, because we're talking about types of deception, it's not always, people in the back rooms pulling this. Sometimes it's just people that are
deceptive.
And they're not trying to be deceptive, but they don't
know any better. Some of them.
Yeah, they're agents of the world unwittingly.
And that shows the power of unregeneration, which emphasizes the greatness of the miracle of the new birth. How that really does, when the scriptures say we're spiritually alive, that is in and of itself a work of, is it in Ephesians where Paul says, but you were created, in Christ Jesus, the handiwork of God. I'm paraphrasing there, but
yeah, I think there's the one that even kind of sewing together, or that's Psalms. But the thing about our time with the ecumenical movement, all the faiths are supposed to come back together in the New Age and the Muhammad, and the Christian message is really the narrow gate. It's Jesus or nothing. It's the message of the cross or nothing.
And we get called narrow-minded for having. We get called narrow-minded for having that one view, but Jesus says the way is narrow.
Tolerant, because everything else now is going to be considered tolerant, and the love of Christ in this age of inversion is going to be turned into intolerance that needs to be eliminated.
Knocked out. Yep.
I remember being in the New Age, and I can tell you because I came from that background, and I wasn't in it too long to get, but I knew I was in it enough to know that when I found out in the New Age that hell wasn't real, it was like, oh, phew, I can basically do what
you were worried. Now you can get crazy, right?
And it was like a revelation that, we've been lied to about this. It's not just, and David Icke, the conspiracy, said that God's not some man with a beard on a cloud dangling people over hell and stuff like that, the flames of hell sort of thing. And I was like, oh, that's, because I had a spiritual awakening, but I had the satanic awakening because I was filled with the Kundalini spirit of, I had weird things going on because I did yoga and meditation and stuff like that. So I really had a spiritual experience. It was powerful. But now I understand the dangers of that leaking into the church and there being false spirits. So I'm very, that's why I'm cautious about certain things in the church. But I can tell you that the experience I had of that kind of energy going up my spine and that airy sort of, what's the right word? Mystical experience. It does. I can see how when people experience that, they can say it's the Holy Spirit, because if they've not experienced anything spiritual before, they don't know the difference. So they're open to being led by deceiving spirits. Yeah, sorry, I don't know where I'm going with that now.
No, I was watching a little video the other day. They were just juxtaposing two people, and this one guy who was an ex-Mason was going through the initiation phase. You get blinded, and the guy that was initiated into witchcraft would go through and their exact same procedures. And of course, what's different from Jesus Christ from everything else, it's a revelation. We're not supposed to take oaths. We don't get initiated. There are no gradations. You're there. You could be there in an instant. For some people, it might be a process of working through your faith walk. And everything else in the world, it's a technique, it's special knowledge, it's grades of gradation and so forth. And some people just refuse that about the word of Christ, is that it's a gift, it's a free gift, and that we're undeserving of it, and we have access to it. And some people just turns them off. Even groovy kind of yoga people. It's techniques to deal with the world. They don't believe anything's going to happen, but while you're here, try to deal with the pain through breathing and just kind of escaping and so forth.
And you know what's interesting? When I was in the New Age, I used to watch sermons about they were end time sermons actually about there was a guy saying we're going to have someone come. He's going to be a hero. He's going to make rain come from heaven. He's going to command the weather, and it will change just for him.
Like a Maitreya kind of figure.
Yeah, like sort of a Matrix sort of hero. Do all sorts of, and I really fell for it. And I can see how the New Age will. There's a danger of a lot of Christians contributing to that story where the New Age is taken for their Messiah, and likewise, vice versa about the New Age. Inviting Christians in to follow that sort of storyline. But it's always interesting, isn't it, to see how, what about communism? How are they? Do they have an ending? Islam has an ending. New Age has an ending. What's the story? How does communism and atheism fit into kind of the false one world religious?
Well, it is the political arm of the synagogue of Satan, and the utopia that Marx talks about is very similar to the Jewish utopia, and it would involve this figure that kind of comes and makes everything right. And again, I've been talking about the Georgia Guidestones. It's going to be a place where the population is going to maintain. You're going to have these Platonic guardians just kind of keeping track of everything. That's not my idea of a utopia, where somebody's making sure exactly how many beans are being counted, is life and so forth. It's a twisted version of the end times that you could only get if it's a demonically, it's the philosophy, it's the end time of the fallen angels,
Yeah, it's going to be a real interesting scene when all this comes alive, We'll be just like, whoa.
But it might not even, will it reach its fulfillment? Because if you think about in Babylon, and not Babylon, but the Tower of Babel, just before they finished, God came down and didn't let them finish. So
that's what's happening. It's a reversal of that. The more I spend time, and the way I kind of structured my book, once you kind of, that system that has to be played out, it's just so biblical. It's so biblical what's taking place. And that's why the movies and stuff have to make reference to the Bible, because they have to tell you exactly what it is they're inverting, because that's part of the initiation and the externalization. It's the participation in this. Marie, are you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't moved a muscle.
Okay, just specifically, this guy Silver Snake's talking about why the interest? Because I know, you know, and Yvonne pointed out in her book, part of this ancient Jesuit slash Schofield kind of idea was that there'd be a single man. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But this idea, you know, going back, I think really twisting Daniel's idea of the end times and putting 7 years on that. And the Bible tells us like an hour, could be anything, right? Probably not a literal hour. But why, like when he's talking the other day, Silver Snake, why do you think he was, if there's an agenda there, what's jamming us with that timeline? Because you even said it to me in your email of like 2002 to 2005 or whatever it is. What do you think they're up to there?
I don't know, but something I've been thinking about is how when I was saved in 2015, the same exact scenario was playing out. And then in 2018, 2019, things calmed down where people weren't like, oh, an asteroid's coming, you know, the Earth's going to be destroyed. It's almost like a complete repeat of what happened. And then I think in 2012 it happened, so I hear, but I wasn't saved. I don't know.
I was watching a channel this week, you know, it's a, okay, I don't want to admit it. It was a couple females talking about Mandela, because I was just kind of curious what they were going to say. And they have some interesting insight. But of course, it's because I kind of want to see what's going on. So it comes back to one of them proposing, well, she had heard this idea that the Mayan calendar of 2012 was a few years off. So now it's actually 2021. So now we can expect a Great Awakening. Aha!
Okay. Something totally different.
I don't think there's some kind of agents. I just kind of think there's this desire that somehow, and anybody that's been kind of following this stuff, you know that the bankers and everybody else, the powers that be, have got this thing locked down.
Right.
You start to realize there's never really been true revolutions, that they've always controlled them all. There's never true grassroots things because they're either co-opted or it's always been astroturf from the get-go. So this idea of the Great Awakening, just if whether you're a Christian truther or just a typical little bit jaded truther, the idea of a Great Awakening should just sound ridiculous.
Yeah. I went to a Lyme disease protest to protest the Infectious Diseases Society of America. And, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of people getting it every year. And there was like 20 people at the protest, and everyone else is complaining from at home that nothing's changed. And, you know, there are people out there sitting in a wheelchair. The rest of the people can barely stand. And the police were standing right there guarding us. Like they were making sure we didn't get too wild. But yeah, like nothing's grassroots, it seems. Every event has a controller.
Yeah, movements are always either controlled from the onset or they're infiltrated and then steered and controlled. Movements are not effective. And you know, and my heart's torn, and I'm not sure where you guys were going. I don't mean to go in the wrong direction here. But, you know, the people in Berlin, I mean, that is an historic protest. Those numbers are unparalleled, the people that are protesting there. And they're, you know, I feel, I'm proud of them. You know, they're standing up and they're doing something. And yet we know even that is, you know, playing into the chaos out of which they'll
chaos. The system needs a yin and a yang and an AC and a DC. So the system allows a certain amount of that to stir things up. Now, I didn't know. I looked this morning at yours to see if it's a real deal, because a few days ago somebody said they were showing something from 2017, which was kind of a holiday festival. But you know enough German that they were definitely, and I saw some free speech T-shirts, so I think they were addressed.
I speak German fluently, so yes, I listened to the entire thing in tears. No, those are the Germans, and they are talking about the masks. They are talking about coronavirus. They are talking about the lockdown. Absolutely, no, it is not something.
People, like you said, that they have, and then Christians in America are doing nothing, or we're listening to our pastors telling us to shut up and take a vaccine when the pharmaceutical,
they're not going to take vaccines. They're over there. They're talking about Bill Gates. They're talking about everything in that video.
And it's legally, they're not even responsible for. Doesn't that strike anybody as bizarre that they have no liability for anything that they inject?
And nobody stops to even question that.
I know. Hey, why? It's so sad. I mean, Americans are so lazy.
Lazy.
So
You know what I think it is in
Lazy.
part?
That's exactly what a German will tell you is Americans are lazy.
Yep.
Oh,
Oh, I
yeah.
agree with them.
Well, and I think in America, and maybe it brings us back to our conversation last week, but, you know, and I hate to be the little self-promoter here, but I think in America, they've uniquely invoked the egregore of earthly Jerusalem and the deception of that, which is shut up, follow the plan,
Yeah.
not God's plan, Q's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And Americans are very simplistic. Everybody in the world is duped. Germany this day with this deception, or maybe that. But as long as a Republican and a Democrat says it, everybody just goes along with the program. It's that simple.
Yep. You're right.
Awful. And the Germans hate America. And yet they might be they're at a different level of duped. It's a different kind of dupe that they're in there because they see the nonsense of Q, they see the nonsense of the Democrats, and yet they don't see what they don't see is because they're completely materialists. They don't see the spirit.
I was talking about like Scandinavians that sound like they have the fruits of the spirit, like calm and self-control and blah 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 blah. But they believe in like these Germans, they believe in evolution.
Yeah.
That
they believe in outer space. They believe in the heliocentric model. So they've bought a religion with all of their pride that they will have nothing to do with religion, right? They are practicing a religion, and it's
that people that think like us, especially if they know that we're believe in Noah's flood, Adam and Eve, and we believe in, for goodness sake, biblical cosmology, they would just view us as just
idiots,
raving lunatics.
Idiots. Just because we believe in Jesus Christ, we're idiots. We're unintelligent idiots, and they should consider the source because we're from America, and everyone in America is an idiot. That's my family in Germany.
Well, it just goes perfectly with what Paul says about foolishness to Greeks, what is it? What does he say? You know what he says better than.
The wisdom of the world is foolishness to God. First Corinthians, you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think we read that so many times that we just are prone to it. But it is so. It's true. It's true. It's actually the opposite.
And that's the part of the deception in America because, and Yvonne points this out in your book, and I do it in a different way in my book. We've been indoctrinated to think that enlightenment was this light of science and reason, and that we can embrace this thing. It's true knowledge. Until you look at it, it was just old-fashioned pagan occultism that was smuggled in under the light of Lucifer, posting the Middle Ages as dark and mindless, an age of faith in something that was superstitious. And now we embrace this God of science.
We're so much more evolved now, right?
Yeah, without actually having the tools to, kind of watch scientists.
Yeah.
Yeah.